Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. Welcome to Civil Justice Subcommittee. Thank you for joining us today. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Good afternoon. Representatives Bolso, Capley, Eldridge, Farmer, Grills,
Yes.
Lamberth, Parkinson, Todd, and Chairman Russell. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Members, do we have any personal orders this afternoon? All right, seeing none, we'll jump right into the calendar and we'll do a couple of housekeeping items. Item number 3, House Bill 1821 will be rolled to the March 19th calendar. Item number 4, House Bill 1906, rolled 1 week. And item number 6, House Bill 2002, taken off notice. That brings us to item number 1, House Bill 2119. Do we have a motion and a second? And Representative Faison, you are recognized.
Good afternoon, committee. Mr. Chairman, certainly good to be with you. I was sitting here thinking, I don't know that I've ever been before you, in front of you, Chairman Russell. I feel kind of cool being here today.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you for your indulgence. My friend who sits on this esteemed committee, Chairman Farmer, and myself, we have a constituent here today, and his property actually, I think most of it is in Farmer's District. Some of it's in mine, but he lives in Farmer's District. He's one of our constituents, and he's brought a bill, which I think is a beautiful thing when our constituents bring us a bill and an idea and a notion and work it that impacts them. It shows Tennessee who we are as a government. It shows Tennesseans that we remember who owns this place. We remember who the boss is. And Mr. Chair, he's traveled from Jefferson County, and if with your indulgence, before I get into the bill, if the committee's indulgence, could we go into recess and let him kind of give the genesis of what he came up with?
That would be great. Without objection, we'll go out of session. And Mr. Sills, if you'll come up and just make sure your red light's on. It's got like a little face with a microphone coming out of their mouth down there. If you'll just make sure that's on, and you'll have 3 minutes, and then we'll have unlimited time for questions.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm David Seal, speaking in favor of House Bill 2119, representing Jefferson County government. This bill is supported by a Jefferson County resolution asking the legislature to protect private property rights. A few weeks ago, Jefferson County witnessed a small city government abuse the power of eminent domain when the resolution was made to forcefully take 95 acres of land away from the parent company of Tennova Jefferson Memorial Hospital for recreation. The only property the hospital had to expand its services in our community. The city had vague plans of how to use the property, no funding in place to develop the property in question, and comparable real estate was available across the road from a willing seller. If a condemner could do this to a four-star major hospital, they can do that to any of us. The taking was abandoned when a property owner donated nearly a $500,000 tract of property for recreation in Jefferson City. And some communities, I remind you, would not be that lucky. Jefferson County and I are asking you to impose some common sense checks and balances to place property owners on a more fair playing field with condemners. This bill, if enacted, would accomplish that and guarantee that takings in the state of Tennessee would be necessary for a public purpose. I would also add a few elements of due process before a citizen is deprived of their property. It's not too much to require that a condemner seek out a willing seller first and have plans for how to use the property once it's taken. And that's what this bill does. I believe the authors of this bill, the 5th and 14th Amendments to our Constitution would be proud of this bill, and I respectfully ask you to find favor with it. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sills. Members, you've heard the testimony. Do we have any questions for Mr. Sills? Chairman Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And David, I appreciate you being up here. I know how hard you've worked on this. You and I have had several discussions, and I know you've met with 30, 40 different members and been here to Nashville from Jefferson County. I know you have things there. You have a family there and a business there that you could be working on, but instead you're here working to better our state. As you said, and I want to echo this, as this piece of legislation is written, it does provide a level of due process that I do think that our founders would be very proud of. But coming from our commission, our county commission in Jefferson County, I believe they voted, I believe it was 21-1, almost unanimous, that we support this legislation. And Representative Faison and I, we support our local government because we're a mouthpiece for our constituents. But I just want to say to you, David, I appreciate your time, appreciate what you've done, and I'm going to be supporting this piece of legislation. So I just wanted members and I want you to know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Representative Eldridge?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And David, thank you for working on this and bringing this. I believe you said that a gentleman stepped up and offered property so that the city could do their rec center or whatever it is they're planning on doing. And
That's
I
correct.
think that's very commendable. And it's like you said, there's not a lot of communities that have someone that supports their community like that. And I believe in that gentleman, Jay Moser, up there. So our hats are off to him for doing that. And we, with Hamlin County, we've experienced back in some years ago, eminent domain. It's never something I don't think that should be used lightly. And we do appreciate what you worked on here for Jefferson County.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sills, you're recognized. Would you like to respond to any of that?
I'd just like to thank the members who spoke in favor of the bill.
Thank you, Representative Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here. You said that the person that owned the property was forced to sell it against their will, or it was condemned. Is that correct?
No, sir. There was a resolution made by Jefferson City to take 95 acres from the parent company of Jefferson Memorial Hospital. And what happened was the community had an outrage over this. And one of the, as Mr. Eldridge mentioned, one of the property owners in our community donated nearly $500,000 worth of property adjacent to one of their recreational facilities they already had. So in order for, he donated that in lieu of them taking the property from the hospital.
You're free to go back and forth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just sitting here trying to wrap my head around any government that would want to do that. It's just, I can't figure out a way that even they can reconcile that makes sense. Our founding principles of property rights are at the core of everything that we do. And everything that we stand on, and the reason we're the greatest nation in the world, and one of the reasons we're the greatest nation in the world. So anyhow, I just appreciate you and the effort you put forth to see this bill through.
Thank you, Representative Bolzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Seal, for being here. My question deals with the evidentiary standard that's established in this proposed legislation. It provides that the condemnor bears a burden of proving a number of factors by a preponderance of the evidence. And as you may be aware, in our justice system, we've got three different standards of evidence. You got preponderance of the evidence,
Right.
the lowest, clear and convincing, and then beyond a reasonable doubt,
Right.
which is the standard in criminal courts. And obviously, it would seem to me that before a governmental entity should take by force or by process of law private property against the owner's wishes, that the bar should be fairly high. And so my question simply is, why does this proposed legislation simply require that the condemnor prove these factors only by a preponderance of the evidence, rather than requiring that the condemnor prove these factors by clear and convincing evidence?
I would be the happiest person in the state if we had a higher standard of evidence on this. This proposed legislation is based on the Institute for Justice model of the necessity doctrine of property taking. They're the ones who wrote into the model legislation preponderance of the evidence. And I personally think it's just a starting point. As you see the 4 points on there, the condemner having to have a plan for how to use the property and prove that it's for public use, that's just a starting point, I think. I'd be the happiest person in the world if the bar was higher, but that's why it is what it is today.
Any further, Representative Bolzo? Representative Capley?
I just want to thank you for the time that we got to spend together. It was a pleasure getting to know you and getting to meet with you. It's very refreshing to have people from across the state that are humble and passionate about their community and that are civil in discourse with us. I'm sure many of my colleagues would agree. It'll warm your heart when you see someone so passionate that comes up here and is civil in their demeanor and really wants to create an effective change. So I just want to thank you for all your hard work and for everything that you've done for this. And I will definitely be voting in favor of this.
Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing no further questions for Mr. Sills, we appreciate you being here today. And I think we got another one here in a minute for you. So we'll go back in session. And Chairman Faison, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. I would like to address Representative Bolso's notion. What this bill is doing, preponderance of evidence is a low bar, but that low bar also is what gets you. Just meeting that standard means that if there is a problem that you can prove that was set at that low bar, that puts you in front of a court and allows the court to be the arbiter of that, which I think it kind of works on both sides of that. So with that, committee, this bill, what I'm seeking to do is four things. The first thing that we're trying to seek with this bill, well, let me start back over. When this all started happening in our county, I started digging into TCA to find out what are the requirements, what are the parameters set by the state of Tennessee before a governing body can just take somebody's property. It was shocking to me how wide open the TCA left it, and the people who came before us left it, that would allow somebody or condemning agent to be able to come in and say, we've decided to take that property. There wasn't a whole lot of standards currently in the TCA. So we have worked together and come up with four standards that I think really kind of embody who we are as a state. The first standard is that before you can condemn a piece of property and take it by eminent domain, you have to prove that whatever you're taking is required for public use. That means for the betterment of everybody, and it's required for it, that you need it, such as infrastructure, such as roads. The second thing is that the condemner has a plan and a timetable that here's our plan. Within the next set amount of time, we are going to achieve this on this property that we're taking. The third thing, which I think is one of the most important, digging into this, I found out it's not been so, and they've condemned land, and 30 years later, they never used it for the reason they condemned it for. You have to have the money or the ability to pay for whatever plan and program that you're taking this property. You also have to be able to show the public that we have the money to do what we're saying we're going to do. And then finally, and it kind of came, the genesis of that was what took place in Jefferson County. If there is land next door to it or right there in the general vicinity, that should be your first option. So with that, that's the four things that I'm seeking to, parameters that I'm seeking to put on when a local government wants to use eminent domain.
Very good. Members, do we have Chairman Farmer?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and sponsor, and I appreciate you bringing this piece of legislation. I've, as you were talking, and as Representative Bolso was talking about the preponderance of the evidence, I realized that how low of a standard that is, as a matter of fact. And I wondered why that wasn't a clear and convincing standard. Because as I practice law, as I have probable cause hearings, a lot of times they're called preliminary hearings in the General Sessions Court on a criminal case, that's an extraordinarily low standard for a judge to meet. Was it more likely than not that the defendant did X, Y, or Z? Mm-hmm. And this isn't a trial that can potentially take someone's liberty. And here we're talking about property rights. And to me, this is one of the most valued rights that we have as citizens of the state of Tennessee in this country, United States of America. Somebody just can't come in and just take your property, right? And that's what we're here to protect. That's what this bill does. Mm-hmm. It's doing a very good thing. So I was just interested. I mean, Representative Bolso, you brought up a good point, and Representative Faison, you piggybacked off of it. But I just wonder why, and I'm not going to make any sort of recommendations for a an amendment or anything right now, but that how we could put a very low standard of a preponderance of the evidence on our property. And maybe we look at that down the road and raising that standard to maybe a clear and convincing standard here. Since we're talking about taking someone's property, taking it without their consent. So with that said, Mr. Chair, thank you for the time, members.
Thank you. Any other questions for the sponsors? Seeing none, where questions been
Mr.
called,
Chair.
we're, sponsor, you're recognized.
I just wanted to say, if there's a way to make the bill better, we're certainly not against that. I'd love to work with them between now and full committee, if that pleases the chair and the committee, and explore those possibilities with the chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Faison. We're voting to send House Bill 2119 to Civil full. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes prevail. Civil full. Congratulations. Next up is item number 2, House Bill 2120. We got a motion and a second. Chairman Faison, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee. Good to be back with you again. This bill, I'm going to roll it 1 week, but I do have my constituent who you just met. The reason he brought this bill forward, he's here, and with y'all's indulgence, even knowing that we're going to roll it, in case he can't be here next week, is it possible for him to go ahead and kind of share the genesis of what this bill is about?
We'd be glad to hear from Mr. Sills. Mr. Sills, if you'll come up without objection, we'll go out of session. And just like last time, you'll have 3 minutes. If you'll just make sure your red light's on, as soon as you start talking, we'll start timing.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. David Seal, representing Jefferson County government for the record. Our county resolution to state legislators identifies several principles regarding private property. Among those, secure property ownership is the foundation of our economy. It provides the confidence to create wealth and private capital and is a significant factor in the American dream. Without the prospect of private property ownership, there's little incentive to work hard and create opportunity. Property ownership is sacred to many people, especially to those of us whose land has been in their family for generations. That land is more than a possession. It's part of their family identity. Accordingly, government should always reserve the power to take property by eminent domain for the most important and essential purposes: infrastructure, school buildings, public water distribution, power plants, and national defense, just to name a few. All property owners in Tennessee deserve protection from unnecessary takings. We're asking you to exclude recreational facilities from the public use definition of eminent domain because such facilities are not essential. They're certainly nice to have in your community, but they're not essential and they do not rise to the level of the other takings I described. Our Jefferson County resolution was triggered when a city government took action to use eminent domain against 95 acres of property owned by the parent company of one of our largest employers, Tenova Jefferson Memorial Hospital. Under our code sections, any community or any property could fall victim to such takings. Jefferson County and I urge you to find favor with the bill. And with that, again, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stills. Members, you've heard the testimony. Any questions for Mr. Sills? Seeing none, Mr. Sills, we appreciate you driving all the way down here from Jefferson County and appreciate you stopping by my office. And without objection, we'll go back in session.
Thank you, Chairman.
And Chairman Faison, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just for you, TDEC had issue with brownfields being part of this. And so that's the amendment we're going to work with, making sure that we take care of that. And if there's any other concerns that somebody has here, please let me know and we'll see if we can address it.
And we appreciate you working with TDEC and us. So without objection, we'll roll this 2120 1 week.
Thank you.
All right, next up is item number 5, House Bill 2715 by Representative Garrett. We got a motion and a second, but we don't have a sponsor, so. We will make a brief recess without objection.
Yeah, yeah. So my mom just sent me this text, y'all, you guys, since everybody's just sitting here hanging out. My dad's been playing with this little book idea, writing these little cool sayings down, and my mom just sent me this saying and said, "The courage to speak should be matched with the wisdom to listen." And I thought, man, that's a lot of depth right there. So just something to think on as we're sitting here waiting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to figure out why his mom sent him that message.
All right, without objection, we're back in session. And Representative Garrett,
Motion.
you recognized. We got a motion and a second. You're recognized on House Bill 2715.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize for my tardiness. I was on the mic in another committee, so I appreciate your indulgence. House Bill 2715 creates a new trial court judge in the 18th Judicial District in Sumner County. There, as you all know, there's a need-based study about a weighted comptroller study that says when certain districts need judges, and Sumner County is one of those. And this bill would provide another trial court judge in Sumner County, and it is also provided for in the governor's budget. So I'd be happy to take any questions the committee may have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any question? The question's been called. Any objections? No objections. We're voting to send House Bill 2715 to civil floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes prevail. Congratulations, civil full.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Seeing no further business, without objection, we will stand adjourned.